Here is some ducks not giving a damn about a roller coaster. Now that is badass. Thorpe Park has always been a theme park that evaded me, mainly because it never fully attracted me with its gimmick of being on its own island, and the fact that I could tell it's more about thrills than theming when it comes to its attractions. Which is perfectly fine, but what I love about theme parks is, well, the theming. I love being transported to another world for a small time as I experience a story while getting thrilled at the same time. But then again, this does have Nemesis Inferno, which has a place in late 2000s cringe comedy history, so I had to check out Thorpe Park eventually.
And sit at the front next to these inconsiderate arseholes.
Located in the market town of Staines-upon-Thames, a place that changed their name partly due to a fictional character, no really, Thorpe Park is a bit of a trip from London, but not a massive ball ache to get to once you're in the city that has lots to do, but you have to do loads of travelling to get there. If I were you, I'd fly into Heathrow Airport and then get a bus or taxi from there, or go from London to the Staines train station, and then get a bus that goes either to Thorpe Park or the Staines town centre. If you want to take part in the local pastimes of drinking and, I don't know what else. Thorpe Park's gimmick, used a lot in its marketing, is that it is an island, which, very quickly... yeah, kind of? It's surrounded by water for sure, but by no means are you isolated from society. Although as we begin to walk into the park, looking at the water surrounding you as you walk through the entrance is pretty cool. I saw many boats driving around and a fair few ducks. A surprising amount of ducks, actually. Not that I'm complaining. Here's some more theme park ducks that I saw. Sorry, enough ducks. Walking into the park's actually quite exciting. There's music playing 24/7, and the music's like simple, easy listening, mixed with some animal ambience. As you walk in, you can go to the right and check into your Thorpe Shark cabin, the only on-site accommodation, or continue to what is called the Dome. I actually did stay on site, so I'll be reviewing that as well today. But for now, let's enter the Dome. You're allowed to go through the gates before park opening to either wait for the park to open or to have some fun in the Dome. I'm pretty sure it's open 24 hours for people who stay on site, so that's cool. The Dome itself houses a small arcade, a couple eateries, including one that does a free breakfast if you stay on site, as well as a big merchandise store. Said breakfast, by the way, perfectly cromulent. It's a buffet styled one, so if you stayed in a hotel before and paid for a breakfast, you know what it's like. It's kind of smart in a way, as you can say you offer it, but since you're at a theme park, people are more likely not going to eat as much as they might as they don't want to feel ill on a roller coaster that day. Just means more for me. One cute thing I did like is that on the right as you enter the Dome, there's a few roller coaster-esque seats coloured to the different events that Thorpe Park does over the year. I thought that was a nice touch. There's a lower level to the Dome too that houses the customer service booth, which I did visit during our stay due to some issues I had. And a thing I did like about the lower Dome is that there's a quiet space for people who need to take a break for whatever reason. As you leave the Dome, you're able to walk around a beach-like area named Amity Beach, and you're able to wait for the gates to open. But since we're already here, let's start here. Amity Beach is something that doesn't interest me personally, but it's a little beach area, complete with lifeguards, a few water slides, and some nice views of the park. I bet on a hot summer day, which is pretty much the only time the actual beach part will be open, it'd be a great place to take the kids if you're a family, or sit alone wondering where it all went wrong while you hear people complain about sand in their shoes. There's also a more traditional kids playground just off Amity Beach, but I'm not getting on a list to get footage of that. If we include the surrounding Amity Cove and the rides that encompass the theme of beach and water, it's actually a pretty well-themed area. The vibe of the area as a whole gives off a summer all the time kind of feel, with some fun theming, such as a shark's body poking out of the KFC, more on that later, a tuk-tuk that's Magnum branded, the Splash Zone sponsored by Oasis. A lot of branding here. All jokes aside, the Amity area was a fun place to walk around. It's wide enough with plenty going on around you. The arcade looked fun. There are those carnival games that, if you watched my Universal Studios review, you'd know that I don't get. and I'd argue it's a good meeting point if you wanted to link up with someone after splitting up. To try and not lose you straight away, let's avoid talking about the rides in the Amity Cove and beach areas for a moment, as we head off to the little weird appendage of the park where the Swarm resides. Currently, at the time of writing this section, a new ride is being built named Project Exodus. But before that, this is the newest roller coaster that has been produced at Thorpe Park, all the way back in 2012. And you can tell, I mean, look at the map. This ride has its own section of the park to itself. I think that aids in this ride being the park's best for me. It's on its own, secluded from everything else, which adds to the theming and story being told here in the ride's build-up. As you walk into the Swarm section, you will see posters dotted about mentioning aliens, and that if you step any further, you risk being abducted by one, as well as a legalize alien sign, as we can be in a literal pandemic and people can still debate whether it's a good or bad thing that the world's being invaded. Political undertones at Thorpe Park? If so, I don't see it. Wander further in, and you'll see a destroyed plane, a sign with a hole in it, ruined vehicles, and a phone booth that I didn't notice until I left the area. You will also hear a mix of sounds as you wander towards the ride, that of which being someone telling you to head to the church for safety from the Swarm, as well as sounds of said aliens. I really like this land and its theming. When I have to point out the toilets to someone as they are pretty well blended in, you know you've done well. Heck, the gift shop is in a shipping container. You also get a great view of pretty much all the ride as you walk towards the ride building, and it really helps build up the anticipation for the ride to come. Shout out to the ducks that I already mentioned, not giving a single damn about a roller coaster passing above them. Double shout out to Thorpe Park for thinking of a dilapidated church as the loading station for the ride, as if it gets any damage, you can just say it's part of the theming. Once again though, before we enter the queue, but I liked the pre-ride storytelling this area provides. It's obvious that you are entering a war zone. Things like a fire engine siren still being on. The church you're going to enter is pretty damn destroyed, looking like it isn't going to provide much cover. A war took place here, and it looks like we lost. As for the queue itself, it's rather boring to be honest. Kettle pen styled, and there's nothing going on to further any story, and the only bit that's of interest is after you get past a crossroads where you go either left or right. Which, by the way, that right there is a freaking mind game, as you cannot see ahead or around the corner, so you have to guess which side has the least amount of people. So when you reach the end of the first part of the queue, and you're being let through to the loading area, be sure to keep an eye out to the amount of people who went left versus right and go accordingly. You will have a second queue too, even if you use a fast pass, so no one is safe from a bit of waiting here. Back to my point from before, the only good part of the queue is the reveal of an overturned police vehicle above you, which does look pretty sick. That, and if you stand to the left after the first queue, you're treated to a view of the ride from above. We'll touch on that again as we ride the mofo though. What's quite funny, right, is that in the second queue area, there's nobody here to properly guide you around. It's a free-for-all in a sense of where you want to go / how you end up on the ride. Because we are British, we form, of course, a queue, as needed for the front row seat. But otherwise, good luck, have fun. As for the audio in the queue, the only bit that I really remembered was that there's an original song by the band You Me at 6, named The Swarm, that would play at times, and it was also used a lot in the promotion of the ride. I remember listening to it when it first came out, and I do indeed enjoy the song, but I feel it'd be cooler if the music was used on the actual ride, or bits of it are used at the start and end of the ride to kind of make it feel a bit cooler and more of an exciting experience. Finally, before we get to the ride, there's actually a Swarm browser game you can play via the Thorpe Park app, an app which works perfectly fine by the way, and it is a vertical shooter in the vein of 1942 or Gallagher, which I beat in about 20 seconds and then it just kind of ends. Yeah, it's a bit shit. The ride vehicles look pretty cool, metallic looking beasts with what looks like guns on them, so it seems we should be riding the aliens themselves, and we are sitting on either side of their wings, feet dangling. Honestly, if you can try and ride on both sides of the wings and try and avoid the inner seat. Of course it is still fun on the inner seats, but what I'm about to mention is loads better on the edge. Be sure to drop your bags to the side, as there are no lockers at any of the rides at Thorpe Park, but there are some rides that do have a cool way of doing it, which we'll touch on later. After a nice and steady climb, you get a quick view of the park around you, the dome and the car park, before a quick loop, and we begin. Soaring under a destroyed plane and flying through a sign with a hole in it. Some twists and turns, and then we hard right across a lake. This is the best example of why you should try and get to the end of the wings. You are either stupidly low to the river during this, or basically flying on your side. Either way, it is a sensational feeling. One corkscrew later, you dodge the broken sign once more before the grand finale of flying upside down over the church we just left. A great opportunity to flip off the people still waiting in line. The Swarm rocks, man. A quick scan of the wiki page of this ride shows that the ride opened to a mixed reception, and I am shocked to hear that, as it's so dang smooth, and although the theming isn't out of this world, it's pretty dang great, and I was proper happy to walk into this land and see so much effort. The ride itself wasn't too rough on multiple re-rides, and the sense of flying on the wings was pretty dang awesome, a first for me. The ride's layout fits the wing coaster style really well too, and it's thrilling no matter where you sit. Though as I said, sit at the end of the wings. With this being the newest roller coaster at Thorpe Park at the time of recording, I'm hopeful for Project Exodus, as I'd argue the Swarm's a banger, and the ride I personally rode the most when I visited the park. If it really is the end of the world, going out on the Swarm's not a bad way to go.
The Swarm at Thorpe Park.
Let's head back to the Amity Cove and beach sections quickly, and review the attractions there. Sadly, I did not get to do any of them, but I can confidently say I've ridden them all before. The Flying Fish is a kiddie coaster with a fun name to say in a silly voice. It looks perfectly fine, but we could not find the time to give it a bash. Or swim, I guess. Or maybe fly? I'm not sure. Storm Surge is a raft ride that, well, you're seeing footage of the outside of the ride right now. It's nothing fancy, but I am sure it is fun on a hot day, and I do love a good raft / rubber circle, I don't know what the name of it is, as they look simple on the outside, but on the actual ride, they are good fun. But I refuse to wait more than 10 minutes for something like this. Although I like its sign, and it fits in the area well, adding to the overall vibe. Tidal Wave also has a nice sign. It flashes. Ooh. And it's your typical log flume ride. Although out of the two water rides in this area, I would happily pick this one, as there is more going on here. There's some theming surrounding you as you go on the ride, giving off the vibe that you are travelling in a flooded area, judging by the top of what looks like a church, and this building leaning to one side. I have to say, the splash you get when you hit the bottom of the drop is flipping mental. So mental in fact, you can watch it from the safety of a cover, or you can be a mad one and stand in the splash zone. When a log flume is unthemed / lightly themed, the splash is all you really got to remember about it. And I would argue that's the biggest splash I've seen at a theme park. Feel free to comment ones that look bigger below so I can look them up and go, oh hell no. But Tidal Wave does what it says on the tin. It creates a tidal wave rivaled by powerful water jutsus, and you're gonna get off the ride cursing whoever said that you should go on it. Since we are nearby and I already mentioned the KFC earlier in the video, although there are your typical themed and unthemed eateries you'd normally find at a theme park, Thorpe Park does something I gotta respect, and that is also having fast food brands in the park, those being the aforementioned KFC in the Amity area, and a Burger King in a very bland Wild West area we'll get to later. You can also find brands like Ben & Jerry's and Cadbury's knocking about the park, as well as a buffet, a cafe you'd normally see on a high street, as well as a weird fascination for shockingly overpriced donuts. So Thorpe Park does have a good amount of food knocking about if you're not like me and actually eat food at a theme park that's not part of your ticket. Apart from a turkey leg at Magic Kingdom, I had to try that once. By the way, doesn't taste nice. Oh, and there's plenty of water refill spots dotted around the park, so thumbs up for that. Double thumbs up for the sunscreen too. Let's finally leave Amity Beach and Cove, head past the free flat rides at the park that I did not ride as, although they looked fun, they were pushing it in terms of wait times. And I wasn't waiting an hour for this when I could ride other rides. Rides like Saw the Ride. Very quickly, there is a flat ride next to Saw called Samurai that, once again, looked fun, but the wait times were kind of a joke for what the ride is. It did have a single rider to speed things up, but it looked slower than the normal wait. So, maybe next time. The first impression entering this section is a good one. The sign looks appropriate, and you get a great preview of the main attraction of the ride. A fully vertical climb, and then an 100-degree drop under some saw blades. The ride building is appropriately themed. It looks like a warehouse where some messed up stuff would go down. The Saw franchise, if you don't know, is a horror film series that is somehow still going, even after dying a death, and is best known for graphic violence in the form of traps, and graphic stupidity in the form of how many plot twists and BS moments this series has. Heck, you know Jigsaw, the voice behind this guy? He dies at the end of the third film, and may I just remind you and or inform you, there are 10 of these films. So, can't lie, something this dumb is a great idea for a theme park ride. As we pass a police car, which I am sure is relevant to the films in some way, I've only seen the first and quote last one, we enter yet another cattle pen queue. This one themed with the addition of fake razor wire all over the place, which, you know what, if there was ever a time to have a cattle pen queue which is very unpleasant, a horror themed ride is the place. As we walk through the outside portion, there are various torture devices and props that look like they'd fit into one of the films, as well as an ambient track playing throughout the speakers. It did get annoying after a 40-minute wait, but whatever. I did hear Jigsaw talk some crap at some points, but it was very dang hard to hear him. I hope he was saying safety instructions. I would love to hear Jigsaw's voice tell me to keep my arms and legs in the vehicle at all times.
Before you board the vehicle, you must make sure you secure any items you have with you, such as keys, wallets, and cell phones.
I noticed a sign in the line that caught my attention. It was basically saying if someone is causing shit in a line, you can scan a QR code and then you can report said person. But what I am curious about is, has anyone ever done this? And how does it work? Do people literally get carried out of the line? Let me know if you've done this before. Final notes before entering the ride building. Pretty much the only view you get of the ride while waiting is of the climb and the drop, which made me even more excited to tackle this ride. After laughing at the "Your time will come" sign, we enter a quite tight indoor queue area where Express, Single Rider and the general queue finally collide. There are some air jets that will periodically shoot people in the queue, which was pretty funny the first time it happened. It reminded me of the Tower of Terror at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And we then pass a few props, including a puppet of Billy on his tricycle, as well as a trap from the third Saw movie. Up some stairs, Jigsaw's on the TV talking about taxes or something, some mannequins are above us wrapped in barbed wire, and we are finally at the loading area. 2 notes regarding this portion. Firstly, you arrive at a bag station where you are given a wristband with a number on it to secure your bags. Very freaking cool, I rate that. Secondly, this section looks equally nasty and gross, both due to the theming and the fact that people are putting crap through the grates, like sweets and wrappers. Lovely. The ride begins with the scariest thing of all, a countdown clock. Jigsaw talks to us, but the only words I could tell from what he said were "live or die," which, to be honest, is about as much story as I need. As we move off, we see Billy the puppet to the right, who is very obviously no longer working anymore. And it looks like we're about to be going into a couple hanging axes, but we dive quite harshly down, avoiding them and passing by air cannons, shooting out air to emulate gunshots. I don't know about anyone else, but one must have gotten me directly in the ear, because it left my ear ringing for quite a long time after I rode this ride. We then swerve down to the left and corkscrew over a dead body on the floor, who looks like he was supposed to shoot out water to emulate blood, but it didn't work that day. We exit the ride building, go around the corner, and finally we are before the vertical climb. But not before Jigsaw appears on 2 TVs, hitting us with the titular line, "Game over." I mean, I think that's what happened, as once again, the TV didn't work, so I just had audio. In retrospect, I think the "Game over" line would have worked better at the top of the drop instead of at the bottom. Like, compare these two. A bit like Rip Ride Rockit at Universal Studios Florida, I find a vertical climb so intimidating. I was also pushing myself into the chair as much as possible, using both my arms and my legs, as this drop is gonna be a killer if my head was not ready. Not like it helped that much. The drop is thrilling as hell, but my god, my head. It's interesting. Apart from the build up to the drop itself, a corkscrew or two, and a quick loop-de-loop, Saw kinda just ends. There is a lot of build up and not too much payoff. Jigsaw at the end says some stuff about us surviving, but as you could probably guess from my review thus far, this ride has a fair amount of technical issues, with things just not working anymore and or not working correctly. It is a shame, as I can see the potential of this ride. I love the idea of a horror themed roller coaster, and from afar, this ride looks flipping cool. But it is rough as hell. Oddly, a bit like Rip Ride Rockit, it has a great start and build, yet it's just too rough to enjoy. If everything was fully working, maybe I would give it better marks. But sadly, Saw the ride, it's just too painful to enjoy. Which maybe was the point? No, I don't think it was.
So you thought the games were over? They've only just begun.
Saw the ride at Thorpe Park.
Handing back our number bands to get our bags back, and hearing Jigsaw on TV screens that aren't working, and checking out highly impractical Billy mugs in the gift shop, we move from Saw the ride to Colossus. The first key thing you see about Colossus as you walk to the ride, apart from a fast food place called Colossus Hot Dogs, how creative, is the long ass stretch where you're looping over and over. Thorpe Park sold this as the first roller coaster to have a total of 10 loops throughout the ride, which is true. And I must say, from the outside, the track looks pretty complex and rather exciting. After a queue of wooden fences, shrubs, and for some reason, marching-esque music, we arrive at a split row where you can either wait for the front row or not. Entering the dispatch building, the room is dimly lit. I can't say I care much for the theming, although I did notice the logo on part of the wall, which when added in a row looks like a bunch of loops. That was cool. And there was a woman's voice over the speakers in this room, whispering shit like 10 loops. And it felt like she was just telling us trivia more than anything else. She needed to take some notes from the dude doing the safety spiel. He sounded like he was saying it with some kind of weapon to his head, ready to use it at any second. My man was not happy, and it sounded like it.
Once again, your ride on Colossus is about to begin.
So to try and look like I know what the hell I am talking about, I'm going to try and do a play-by-play on this ride to describe each of the 10 loops and how thrilling this ride is. We leave the dispatch bay and immediately head up a hill, where we turn straight into a vertical loop, or a loop-de-loop. My best advice for these, by the way, or any time you go upside down on a roller coaster, is plant your feet into the floor, as well as holding on. That way your body should stay more still compared to just holding on with your hands. Like when I do it, it feels like I'm almost doing a squat. While ducking under and around a building, we then have 2 cobra rolls, named after the fact that they look like a cobra. I don't really agree. 2 corkscrews before then having 4 barrel rolls in a row to make Pepe Hair happy. This is the section I mentioned you see as you walk to the right, by the way. If you are prepared, like I said before, that section can be mighty fun. If you're not ready, get ready for some pain. We then round a corner to do one last barrel roll, this time anti-clockwise, and we're done. Yeah, this ride is only about 90 seconds, but my lord, once you start moving off from that lift hill, the ride does not stop. Until it does. I found this ride butter smooth near the start of the day, but by the end of the day, this ride can be very, very rough. Not saw the ride rough, but enough to give me a headache. So basically, ride it at the start of the day if you want a slower yet thrilling ride, but after it gets warmed up, you really do feel the 45 miles per hour, for good and bad. I do wish this ride had a tad more theming to fit in with the, what I think is Aztec theming, but then again, the rust on the track actually fits in with the theme, so there you go. 100% worth a ride though.
The world's first 10 looping roller coaster, Colossus. It never leaves you. Thorpe Park.
Well, we've had our heads banged by 2 roller coasters, why not get our mind banged by heading over to the Black Mirror Labryinth. I've watched a few episodes of the show during its Channel 4 era, and I enjoyed it enough, but when I was developing an interactive film and pitching it to clients, this was before and shortly after Bandersnatch came out, an interactive Netflix film. So whenever I would pitch my film after that came out, I would just keep getting, oh, so like Bandersnatch. So to keep getting that was kinda annoying, so maybe I have some deep resentment to the property, I don't know. We, by the way I'm saying we because I was there with a friend, entered the line as it had a posted 0-minute wait. We thought we caught it right when it opens, and let's just say 25 times 0 may equal 0, but I sure as hell did not wait 0 minutes. A very boring queue once again, although the queue music sounded like some fighting game menu music. I was entertaining myself, swaying in time to the beat, pretending I was in a fighting game. I like to make my own fun, as you can tell. So, after being put into a group, we have our photo taken by a dude who kept his character of being brainwashed really well. Shout out to him. The photo quality wasn't the best. Only the top of my head was taken in the photo too, so my slap head under the head that the image gets put onto, I looked like a thumb. So, Black Mirror Labryinth is basically a maze with a story, and in the dark. A story involving what I believe to be an AI is trying to be told. But it was really nothing worth your time. There was a bit where you can see the AI near the start, but at the same time there's a person shrouded in darkness trying to help you escape. As soon as I saw that, I knew that the AI at the start would be the person at the end. Spoiler, but you can guess the rest. The attraction tries to use loud noises and strobe lights to scare you, but fails pretty terribly in my opinion. However, I do enjoy the use of projection mapping around the attraction, such as the face of the AI and the fact that the images that were taken of you at the start is plopped in and around the ride to fit into the story. That's a cool idea. But it all looks a bit naff, and we all exited the maze looking like we just ate a bit of food that we wanted to return to the chef, but we were too awkward to. We all just kinda nodded and moved on with our day. If you only have one day and are strapped for time, I would argue skipping this attraction as, in a sentence, it's a bit naff.
Look closer.
Welcome. I am Labryinth.
We leave the labyrinth, notice that the Project Exodus fence is in the distance, and pass through the western-themed area that I mentioned previously. Yeah, not sure what used to be here, but this area looks a bit forgotten, and I would not be shocked if this gets rethemed at some point. Minus a Burger King, there was nothing really going on here. We walked past a kiosk selling fast passes, more on that shortly, past Mr. Monkey's Banana Ride, which sadly was closed, round to the Ghost Train. Quick history lesson here, if you'll pardon the wording. the Ghost Train attraction's kinda been cursed since day one. It opened up as Darren Brown's Ghost Train in 2016, a VR attraction made with British illusionist Darren Brown. It had a mixed reception when it launched, and from what I have researched, sorry to say it again, it did look a bit naff. Though it had some unique and cool ideas. But there was literally a bit where you're wearing the VR headset right, and to emulate what's going on in said headset, staff members would have to run down the ride vehicle, that being the Ghost Train itself, touching people's legs. It got a slight retheme in 2017, trying to fix some of the story issues, but it still wasn't received with the greatest of love. So it got yet another retheme in 2023 to simply Ghost Train, removing anything to do with Darren Brown, redoing the story, and removing the virtual reality. Ironically, once again, it was met with mixed reviews. So it was briefly closed for a few weeks after opening, reopening a few days later. Right, so I did not get to ride it. I tried to with some compensation fast passes that we got for not being able to use our 1 hour fast passes, and the passes read that they worked on any ride. So, when we used them with Ghost Train, we got to the front and then got turned away. I complained and was told that you could not buy fast passes for Ghost Train, even though I took a photo of a fast pass kiosk and it clearly gives you an option to buy one. So fuck if I know and fuck the Ghost Train for the time being. Stay cursed for all I care.
All aboard the Ghost Train. Believe if you dare. New at Thorpe Park Resort.
From curses to the undead, we go back towards the centre of the park as we pay a visit to The Walking Dead, the ride. Weird placement aside, like it's off in the corner of the Amity Cove area, and you can walk past carnival games and yay fun things, turn around the corner, and then you have a horror ride with zombies. A Walking Dead attraction could be a fun idea. I was indeed curious to see what's ahead. Passing by a random motorbike, which I would have to guess is supposed to be, or at least trying to emulate, Daryl Dixon's from the show, we enter yet another Kettle Pen queue. These are not fun to wait in, and the overall theming's okay here. There's a watchtower above us. Thorpe Park Safe Zone is inscribed on one of the walls, and yeah, nothing too much to complain about here. Apart from the fact that the queue is below Storm Surge, a water ride, meaning that water constantly drips onto parts of the queue, which could be unpleasant if you get unlucky and have to wait there. Plus, it kinda breaks any form of immersion you try to create for yourself. Then again, the immersion was not kept for long, as over the speakers in the queue, we were informed that scare actors would be working the ride today, and we were warned not to hit the actors, saying stuff like, "They won't touch you, please don't touch them." I feel bad for any actors who have been punched as a reaction to being scared working this ride, but we are in the UK after all. My reaction to getting scared is to enter Hong Kong Fooey mode too, so I understand. Anyways, we hand off our bags once again with that wristband system that I am shocked more theme parks don't do, and we are then off into a dark room. This felt like there should be a pre-show here, and in days past, such as when this ride first opened in 2018, there was indeed a pre-show. Said pre-show is actually where you get any backstory for this ride, so skipping it did kinda hurt my experience a tad. Instead, what I got was, after standing in a dark room for a few seconds, a woman came over the intercom saying, "Door in front of you," which A, actually jump scared me a bit, and B, made me feel like a bit of an idiot. The story of this ride is that Thorpe Park has been overrun with zombies, and we are in the Walking Dead universe. We have made it to the safe zone, but walkers, zombies by the way, have breached the safe zone walls, and we are getting let through to attempt to get to safety. It's a shame the pre-show wasn't running, as it opens with a great nod to the source material, asking how many walkers and people we have killed. The footage of zombies outside the queue for stealth looks cool, and there's even small touches like an effect behind you emulating the fact that there are zombies outside. From the pre-show, we then have quite a long walk through some long-ass hallways before we get to the ride vehicles. There's some simple theming along the way, but it's nothing special. But at the same time, it was nice to have a dark ride trying to build fear with the use of dark lighting and props in a park like this. For all of the horror theming Saw wants to have, the queue, in my opinion, really didn't try to scare you in any way, maybe minus the air cannons, so I am thankful for the effort. The ride itself is rather short, and it's pretty much all in the dark, but overall the ride's actually not that bad in my opinion. Is it thrilling? Not really, but did I enjoy it? Yeah, I'd say so in retrospect, but as a walk-on, I'd have been really annoyed if I queued for anything longer than 10 minutes with this one. Key moments of this ride are passing by some pretty good looking zombie dolls, and a bit that I was genuinely shocked a public theme park got away with. There's a bit right where we are stuck, and the person who is trying to get us to safety is trying to restart the ride. And to the left of us, someone gets eaten by walkers, and I was just impressed that a kid could go on this ride and see that. So, fair play. But then it just kind of ends. This is where the scare actors reside, and they go for it, God bless them. I always find scare actors a weird barrier to try and accept, maybe it's the autism in me, but I don't get scared at all by them, yet at the same time there is deep fear inside me. I don't know, it's an odd one. The Walking Dead The Ride, as a attraction, is perfectly fine, but the addition of scare actors at the end of the ride does make it a tad more memorable overall. I would not ride it again, but it was fine for a one-time ride. A final note though, you exit out to the gift shop at the end, right? Which is just an alternative entrance to the main gift shop in the theme park. It's super weird. In fact, the gift shop entrance is next to the woman's bathroom, which... well, they did get one thing right. I am terrified of women. Don't show this part to my partner.
Will you ride to survive? Or walk with the dead? The Walking Dead, The Ride, at Thorpe Park Resort.
After umming and ahhing on some mugs in the gift shop, we pass through Amity Cove, admire the shark above the KFC once again, and we enter... Angry Birds Land.
Sorry, me. I need to interrupt me with me. Nice hoodie, by the way. Angry Birds Land is actually now closed. It closed on the day I'm editing this section. Rest in peace. So I guess this section is now a post-mortem. That is 2 videos in a row where a land I mentioned, or something I mentioned, is now gone. Do I have a curse?
So, you may ask, Angry Birds Land? Who the hell wanted that? And I agree with you, but could also counter you with the fact that we forget that Angry Birds was really that big. It has 2 movies, a shed load of kids merchandise, and just today, the day I am writing this section of the script, Sega is in that Sega just bought Rovio, the owners of Angry Birds. So, the joke's on us? After passing some carnival games where I am just gutted I couldn't play and earn myself the yellow bird, the first impression is rather lacking in terms of theming. As you can see here, parts of the lands were a bit worse for wear. Although I did see Redbird as a walk-around character, so that's kind of epic. Although seeing him have feet was nightmare fuel. Attraction-wise, there is a pig-themed Dodgems, or bumper cars for my American friends. They are what you would expect. There's a Blackbird-themed drop tower called Detonator. It looks like simple fun, but sadly the wait times were way too long for the time that we were there. An unthemed teacup ride, which I am not sure if that's even part of the Angry Birds land, but whatever. This leaves the final attraction, the one I actually rode, or saw, Angry Birds 4D. The show building is the footage I previously showed off where I was talking about worse for wear. Although there's some simple characters on the side of the building, what really caught my eye was how rough the building looks. It really needs some TLC. What also caught my eye was the fact that me and my friends were the only people who were not children or with children in this queue. Think of that what you will. The cinema is nice and big, with a few rows that have non-moving seats if you need that. There are a few posters for Angry Birds short films dotted around, along with a red bird in the back of the room, judging us the entire time. Shout out to the staff. They dealt with the kids and hyped up the crowd really well. Time to put on your redbird glasses, as it's showtime. The birds are hanging out. The red one for some reason wants to put sunscreen on eggs. 10 quid if you can guess what happens to us when he shoots this viscous white liquid at us. And the pigs steal the eggs, and the birds attack them the only way they know how. Throwing themselves into certain death. That fails and the pigs try to get away in carts, integrating the second Angry Birds video game into this short film. The pigs then try to fly away, number 3, and the birds give chase in bubbles and enter interdimensional portals. Whatever. And they become superheroes, number 4. More shenanigans, the birds all get captured minus Redbird. He pulls a mega Chad move by saving the day and ends up getting back the eggs. Tell you what, this was rough. Every time a bird fired themselves, the chair you're in dipped pretty far back and flung forward with some force, giving me a proper bad back by the end of the 10-minute film. Besides that, it's your average 4D show you've probably seen before, this time with birds who can operate vehicles, somehow are immortal, and can breathe in space. It's skippable. Leaving the land of flying birds to a land of the flying, a ride that makes you feel like flying, kinda sort, not really, Nemesis Inferno. So, it was closed for maintenance when we went, but we got super lucky, and the day it opened up was the day we were leaving, so we were able, with the use of some fast passes as the park was sold out that day, get a few rides on this beast of a ride. So, although this ride may not have a story to tell, I did enjoy the theming of this queue here. The ride is themed to an erupting volcano, so the scenery around you is this rubble, with some small geysers shooting out steam. I am reaching a bit here, but let me reach. One thing though, continuing a theme of screens not working for some reason, I noticed in this line, and in every line that had a screen, that they just simply weren't on. I have no idea what the purpose of these screens are or were, maybe to provide some safety information? Ride time updates? No idea. But they were never on, so no clue. When you get to the main loading area, you have the option to again split off into a single rider line, which, unless you have the stones to wait even longer, I would just get in the normal line, mate. Nothing fancy in the loading bay to speak of, so let's ride this mofo. Gut impression here is that this ride rules. It's buttery smooth and my head was perfectly fine after every ride, and hot damn, it is thrilling. But let's dissect it in a bit more depth. As we move off, I got a bit of weird criticism / I want to ask you all a question. People, what is your opinion on roller coasters letting you look behind the scenes? I don't know. It's an odd one. In one where the roller coaster is trying to tell a story, or trying to set a feeling or theme, I find it a bit immersion breaking. So, like with Nemesis Inferno, you got through this dark, volcanic line. The ride vehicle comes in, you're hyped as hell, you sit down, the gates drop, letting you through, and oh, is that a street cleaner? For the record, I do not mind seeing views of the park. I find it rather cool, actually. I don't know, maybe it's my autistic ass getting way too nitpicky and strange on this. Then again, why the hell are you here? The ride moves off and takes a swift right turn, down into a misty, red-lit hole, entering the volcano. We quickly leave said cave and curve around to the lift hill. After a quick view of not much, we smoothly drop into a small area with a reservoir and some shrubs. A loop-de-loop that feels effortless takes place. We fly through various corkscrews and turns before the ride ends, lasting about a minute in total. The ride is smooth as butter. The various twists and turns are thrilling as hell, and unlike the start, I appreciate that you move in and around the grassy area. It felt like you were touring around the volcano that you climbed up while queuing. I noticed at one point you fly over a crocodile or alligator. I couldn't tell you which, I couldn't see their teeth. That was a nice touch, and I must say the transitions from curve to curve on the track was so dang smooth and it never felt jolty at all. People, where does this slide in the gift shop go to though? I wish to know. but I was too scared to slide down it that day for fear of getting stuck. Speaking of the gift shop, dear God, the merchandise for this ride is naff. The merch situation overall at Thorpe Park is fine, but this ride's logo is bloody ugly, so to have that on a mug or shirt with said logo on, yeesh, danker, but no danker. The ride is amazing though. Don't let my weird feedback take that fact away. You know there are people who do challenges where they ride the same ride all day to see how many go-arounds they can get? This is the ride in Thorpe Park I'd pick to do that kind of challenge.
Feel the heat of Nemesis Inferno, now at Thorpe Park.
With the thrill of traversing around the volcano behind us, let's check out the Rumba Rapids, a ride where it wasn't very rapid and I didn't get very rumba. I mean, wet. I didn't get very wet. What I love about the Thorpe Park map, right, is that all of the outdoor attractions show their basic layout. So with this ride, you can get the preview just by looking at the map. You enter a covered section and there's a little corner with some rocks. The only real things of note from this ride were that one of the wooden bridges, right, was rotten to hell. The covered section has a waterfall that actually made me fearful that we were going to get wet, only to realise that it's not physically possible for that to happen. And the rocky section gives us a nice view of a Burger King. I'm always curious on if all of the budget goes into building these rapid attractions, as I've been on a fair few in my time, and even the best one I've been on at Islands of Adventure is just fine, but at least on that one it's pretty obvious you're going to get soaked. Plus there's a nice bit of theming to look at along with music. I personally don't see the appeal of these rides, but whatever. Getting off the Rumba Rapids and passing the teacups, we find ourselves by the final ride of the day, Stealth. One thing I did not mention about Tidal Wave, which I will here as it applies to, is that Tidal Wave and Stealth have a fake radio channel playing near the rides. It helps invoke a cool vibe, with the fake adverts you can hear playing and the fake news between songs. It's a nice bit of theming that did not go amiss by yours truly. Why did that sound really smug? Tell you what, I feel bad for people who queue in the normal queue for this ride. That shit looks boring as fuck. A bit of advice for anyone who ever goes to a theme park that has a ride like this. Fast pass that shit if you can. I say this because the ride is so damn short, no matter how fun it is, you're always gonna go, is that it? Afterwards. Look, I adore Red Force in Spain. I rode that 6 times in a row, and that love is partly elevated because you get a wicked view of the ocean nearby, as well as a nice view of Tarragona. Stealth doesn't have that kind of luxury to elevate the experience. Oh, what is Stealth? It is a ride that sole job is to go fast, and go fast at a moment's notice. Don't get me wrong, it looks visually cool, and the ride is super thrilling. But unless it is a walk-on, rides like this irk me in a way. I would rather queue an hour for something like Swarm or Nemesis Inferno. Is Stealth fun? Yes. Is the build-up before the 80-mile-an-hour launch in 2 seconds awesome? Hell yes. But if you can, try and either run to this at the start of the day, get a fast pass, or wait till the end of the day to try this ride. It's fun, but you don't want to get off the ride thinking, damn it, I waited way too long for that.
From the people that brought you Nemesis Inferno and Colossus, prepare for Stealth.
And with that, we have covered Thorpe Park. But before we come to a conclusion, I can actually review the on-site accommodation for this place. The Thorpe Shark Cabins. Before we begin, look at the map. It kind of looks like a fucked up fish, doesn't it? As you walk to the park, towards the dome, there will be a sign to your right. I like the logo, by the way, and in the distance you can see the titular Thorpe Shark, which we shall discuss shortly. The reception has got some light theming to it, a small shop where you can buy merch and some essentials you may have forgotten like toothpaste, sunscreen and Monster Energy. Speaking of, you can drop off your items at reception, and if you do it early enough, they may take it to your room. They did for me, and it was a really nice surprise. Shout out to the staff too, they helped me the next day with a problem that I had, and they were great. The Thorpe shark itself is a metal shark you can walk through. It's pretty sweet, with some calm light blue lighting. A nice touch is that old ride signs can be seen as you walk through. A nice little taste of theme park history. As for the exterior of the hotel rooms, they're just shipping containers. Thorpe Park really has a thing for them. I wonder if they're bought wholesale. There is a little outside picnic area with a burger van and had some nice warm lighting. As well, you get a nice view of Stealth. Through some trees. But finally, the main event. The room. It's a room, what do you want me to say? These can sleep 4 people, but fuck me if you're 4 people sleeping in here, you are stronger willed than I am. There's a double bed and 2 singles, one of which can be pulled down or put away as needed. There's a TV with Freeview on it, and a free HDMI port if you want to bring your Ouya. Next to the TV, there's a mural of Thorpe Park with some nice mood lighting. There is a bit of storage dotted about, as well as a free bottle of water, which you can ask for more for at the reception, and a kettle, because Thorpe Park is in England. As for the bathrooms, it's one of those wet room scenarios where you can shower in the section you shit in if you want it. You could do both at the same time. You sick fuck. A word of warning, put a towel outside the door. As when I used the shower, I wasn't in there for too long, it leaked into the bedroom, soaking one of my bags. A shout out to the staff, they got me a little tote bag, which I'll put here, which I used during the day since my bag was soaked. As for the beds themselves, yeah, they're not too bad. As for the sound levels though, don't play Fortnite loudly at night, as you will for sure be heard. But overall, the rooms are fine. They should get the job done. Don't expect anything fancy, but you do get a 1-hour fast pass for staying on site for the second day of your trip. We got unlucky and nearly all the rides were down during the morning period where my fast passes worked. So if that happens to you, be sure to raise it up to staff and they'll sort you out. Well, Thorpe Park. I had fun. I think it's a single day park in my mind. So if I were to go again, I would go on a very quiet day, get there at the start of the day, leave at night, and try and avoid the locals. This reminded me of PortAventura in a way. Plenty of people around my age who you could tell were locals by how they talked about the park and their knowledge. If you were to fly into Heathrow and you needed something to do while you waited for your next flight, or you're nearby for whatever reason, I think it could be a fun day/half-day trip. It's for sure for the thrill seekers, as there's not much to do for families, as well as theme park fans who want story in their rides, or Disney level theming. However, it was fun. In a way, I am glad I did this review, as not only was it a test as a writer, but it was also a nice grounded reminder that sometimes you just want to go fast, smile, and ruin your voice the next day from some non-voluntary screams of joy. But you know what? This trip made me think of something. Theme parks are a weird hobby, right? We chase very high highs for a short period of time, then we get withdrawal symptoms from the fact we can't go back right away, even if we wanted to. Are theme parks like drugs? I wonder which costs more.